Hello everyone. Welcome to Programming Simplified. We have Rajat Agarwal today with us. He's a competitive programmer and has got an impressive global rank of 56 in TCS CodeVita. He's going to introduce himself and tell you how to approach programming in real life. So all the best, Rajat Bhaiya. Over to you.
Thank you, Shaima. I think I shall wait for some time. So let me begin. So hello guys, my name is Rajat Agarwal. I'm a final year EC student, and today in this conversation we are going to uh, basically try to figure out. We will try to figure out how to start with programming. So programming is used in many domains in every industry nowadays. So we today as students, we will try to figure out how to start with programming, right? So my name is Rajat Agarwal, and I am a competitive programmer and a full stack MERN developer. Also, I have done many projects on React. So I have been learning coding since 2 years, and I solve problems on Geeks for Geeks. I practice problems on Geeks for Geeks and Code Chef. Also, I participate in different competitions like TCS CodeVita, Infosys Hackathon, Fee, Google Hash Code, in Code Chef contest as well. Uh, so yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and this is all about my description. So let me begin with what is programming. So all about programming. Why programming do we need? This is the program flow we are going to discuss in this session. So why programming is needed? What are the programming languages we can choose? How we can begin with coding, and some hands-on coding we will be doing. Some basic fundamentals we will be learning about coding, and a guide to learn more. Right. So let us just begin. So why programming? So everybody will think if there is a hype like always we need to do programming for placements or for any hackathon. We always need programming. So why programming? Because programming, we as humans, we can only understand problems, we can actually make conclusions out of it, but we cannot very efficiently, we are not efficient, we are not very fast to solve it. We can solve problems, but we take some time. So computers on the other hand, they don't have any thinking ability, but they are really very fast. A common human being can only do a less than 100 operations per second. That is the maximum limit, 100 operations per second. But a computer can do 10 to the power 8 operations per second. It's about 10 to the power 8 operations per second, which comes around 100 million operations per second. So it is very, very much a million times more efficient than human beings. So what makes us different from computers? We can actually understand the problem. We can actually understand the uh, codes. We can actually understand the whatever situation is there, and we can make some logical conclusions out of it. But on the other hand, computers, they are very efficient to do works, but they don't understand the problem. So what we do is we understand the problem and we feed it to the computer so that they can get our task done. So we instruct the computer to do a certain task. So computers are very efficient. They can do an operation very fast. But on the other hand side, human beings can understand the problem. Without understanding the problem, you cannot go and solve a problem. So for solving any task, any problem, we need computers. We need, as human beings, we need to understand the problem first, and then we feed it to the computers, which they can do it very fast. They can do operations really very fast. We can also do it, but we are like a million times slower than a computer. So there, that is why we use computers on in programming. So why programming? Some real life examples for programming are like programming is used in Google Maps. So Google Maps actually uses the graph data structure, where it basically whenever you use a Google Map, suppose, so whenever you feed a destination point, you can get a path to like the source and the destination. You can always get the path. So it shows the shortest path possible, or the shortest time which the path will take, so that there can be multiple paths, but it shows the shortest time path, because it depends on traffic, other parameters as well. So it is a graph algorithm. So graph is a data structures which we use in coding, in data structures and algorithms. So we use graph again in social media networks. There we use data structures to connect with people, so they are connected as nodes. In encryption and decryption of messages. So in WhatsApp, we generally see a message is encrypted. It is written at the above. So the message is end to end encrypted. So what it really means is whatever information we are sending to a recipient, right? So it is actually getting encrypted. What is encrypted? It is getting encoded in some other string, or in some other message, which a layman cannot understand. Not even a hacker cannot understand, right? Because it is encoded in some particular way, with some particular algorithm. It is hashed, right? So it is only decrypted by the programmer who knows the algorithm. If you don't know the algorithm, you cannot decrypt the message. So there is where encryption and decryption of messages can be done using programming. Also in operating system. So operating system, we all have operating system in our machines. So operating system is it actually performs all the input output. It supports, it actually runs all the programs on the computer. So it's like an application for running other applications. So operating systems are actually designed using some languages like C++. So they are actually the heart of the softwares, right? So no other application can be run without operating system. So operating system is an application which is inbuilt in the computers and which can run other applications. So we need operating systems to run other applications, right? A very famous example, which is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is an OpenAI model, which we all know. So it is trained with a lot of data sets, and it is an AI model. So whenever you ask some questions, it will actually give you a response, right? Just like a human being, it will give you some response. It will learn from its previous experiences. So that is an AI model which can learn from its previous experiences and actually get better and better with time. So that is ChatGPT. In websites and web applications, we also see programming without HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, Angular, Vue.js. we cannot write the front end, right? So front end part and the back end part is written in some Python, maybe in Node.js, or maybe in PHP. So there are different languages, but programming is there in every part of web applications. Also in mobile applications are developed using Java or Kotlin, or something, right? So there also Swift is used for iOS. So in that case also programming is really helping us, right? So codes are everywhere we see there are codes running behind. In the backend there are codes which are running behind, right? And we are simply using the functions, right? We are just using the functions. We are just bothered about the function. We are not seeing the codes behind it. We are just using it. We are, even if we are using YouTube, right? So YouTube is also running on some programs, some really big programs. So we are using its functions. We are just bothered about its functionalities. We are not seeing the codes behind. But as a developer we should know how they are working, right? Not very complex programs, but at least the basic programming knowledge is needed as a developer. So programming is a very little we need to know about writing codes and all. It is mostly maths. All programming, it's all about maths, right? Some logical thinking and some maths, right? So everyone here, like we are doing our engineering, so we all know basics of maths, right? So in class 11, 12, we have learned maths. In our first year, second year, we have learned maths, right? So that is enough for doing programming. So we already know, as a beginner even, we know that we know 80% of programming, right? We just have to gain the knowledge of how to write codes, how to play with codes. That's it. But we know how to build logics, right? As engineers, we know how to build logics, how to build efficient logics, right? So programming is mostly maths. Now there are different languages in programming, right? We have a lot of options. We can choose Python, we can have Kotlin, TypeScript, there is C, there is CSS, there is C++. There are a lot of PHP, JavaScript, HTML, Swift. There are a lot of programming languages you can choose from. You can start with some of the really very famous languages like C++, Java, or Python. You can start with it, and you can then learn other languages as well. So language is just used to communicate with the computer. So we it's just a medium to communicate with the computer. So we as human beings, we know English or Hindi or Bengali, so we communicate in those languages. But when a machine and a human being tries to communicate, so we need to know these languages. Any of these languages can do. So any of these languages will be learning these languages so that we can actually communicate with the computer. We can actually make the computer understand the problem. This is the problem statement, and what is to be done to solve that particular task or that particular problem, right? So a very famous programming language is C. C language is very simple to learn. It is like widely used in operating system. It is widely used in making kernel designing, right? So it is a high performance language, and it is it is very old. Still it is used in many parts. It is like very famous language, and it is known as the mother of all languages because the syntax and all, a lot of languages are actually are having like a very similar syntax to C. So C, if you learn C language, then it will be very easy to switch to other languages. We just need, it's like even if we just know one language, we can switch to other languages. It is very simple to do that, because as programmers, if we know how to build a concept, how to frame a sentence. If we can frame a sentence, then we can actually switch to other languages, right? If we know how to frame a sentence in English, then we can always do it in Hindi. We can just simply translate, right? If we know some basics of Hindi, right? So that is what I'm trying to say. If we know just one language, we can actually simply switch to other languages as well. but knowing a language is more it's more up to syntacticals and all, but rather framing your program very well, framing the codes very well. That is where the point is, right? So other famous languages are like C++ is there, some Java is there, Python is there. So C++ is, again, it is derived from a C language, right? It is a modified version of C language. So it is again a high performance language. It is very fast, and it is used in high performance systems, right? Again, in operating systems it is used, and in game development it is used to optimize problems, right? It is very efficient in nature, and also we use C++ in competitive programming very much, because it is fast again, and it is simple to learn. There is a standard template library in C++ which enables us to use many different kinds of function, which are really helpful in competitive programming. In Java, so talking about Java is an old language, and it is used in like Android development. It is used in game development, game console developments. So it is again a very popular language, and it is object oriented, which makes it very much powerful. Again, so if we talk about Python is like the most it's getting famous day by day. It is like the most emerging language nowadays. So Python is very simple to use. It has very simple syntax. It's like an English dictionary. Like, you can learn Python very easily. And Python is used in data analytics. It is used in machine learning. It is used in backend. So it has a lot of applications. So we can use Python in different types of field, right? So moving ahead with how to get started with coding. So before writing a code, we will be having three segments. We will divide it into three segments. So we can before writing the code, there is a phase. Then we will write the code, and after writing the code, we can actually debug it. So before writing the code, we actually should know the problem statement. What is the problem statement? We should be able to derive conclusions from the problem statement. The problem statement should be clearly provided, and it should be clearly understood. The person or the platform you are coding in, or wherever you get the problem statement, it should be clearly defined. That is a condition, and you should be able to understand it properly. As a programmer, if we need to write a program, then the problem statement is very important. Just like we do in maths, suppose there is a problem, then we have to actually understand the problem first, then only we can draw some conclusions. We can actually pen down some approach and all. So there lies, if we are able to understand the problem statement, if we are able to understand the input format, because whatever inputs are being given by the program, because in case of a program, as a human being, like, we know the inputs, right? If we don't feed it to the computer won't be able to understand what are the actual data, right? So which data we need to manipulate, which data we need to modify, so that we can get the output, we can get the actual learning. So there is where input format is needed. So as a whole, problem statement should be defined, and the input data should be known to us. The data format should be known to us. It can be integer, or maybe float, or maybe a character, a string. It can be anything. So it should be known clearly before writing a code. So again, after knowing the problem statement, we will try to write down the approach. We will try to pen down the approach, which might solve the problem. There can be different approaches to a problem. There can be two or three approaches to a problem, but we start with the most basic approach, and then afterwards we try to optimize it, right? And we try to run the code line by line. We will be talking about it later, how to run the code line by line, right? So this is all about before writing the code, the statement should be clearly understood, and we need to actually pen down the problem. We need to understand what approach we are going to use, and we need to actually we can actually dry run the code on pen and paper, right? So starting with basics, so as beginners we will be trying to focus on C language, so because we have C languages in our curriculum. So we will be using C language to understand and to understand the basics of that language and how to actually implement problem solving in that. So some basic things in C language are like variables. You should have the knowledge of variables. So there are variables are nothing but a data container which actually carries some particular type of data, right? So int is a variable type. It's a variable data type which carries integers, right? Integers are like from negative numbers and all the positive numbers without any decimal points, so they are called integers. Float is again a data type container which can contain decimal numbers, right? So again there is char data type which can contain characters like a or b or c. These are some characters, or maybe hashtag, something like that, okay? So a star or something. So it everything like a lot of everything you see in our keyboard, like a tilde or something. So everything is a yeah. So so everything is a character. And after that we need to have some basic knowledge about operators. So what are operators? What operators are used to actually combine some variables, right? To define something, some relation, or do some operation, right? So they are used to modify the data, right? Modify, why we need to modify the data? So as to come to our problem, like we have to solve our problem statement, right? So as to solve our problem statement, we need to modify the data. We need to assign some new values. We need to actually do some computations. So we will be using operators on variables to modify data and to come up with a solution, right? So there are different types of operators, like arithmetic operators are there, logical operators are there, relational operators are there, and binary operators are there. So arithmetic operators are like plus, minus, divide into very basic things, right? Logicals are like greater than, less than. So they actually compare two variables, right? So 5 is greater than 4, so on and so forth. Equal to is just for comparing two variables, like 4 is equal to 4 or not. So it will return a true or false, right? So it can be used in if else statements. We will be discussing it later. Relational operators are there, which are actually used to define relations between some operations. Like if we need to add two operations together, so we can use an and statement. So this is the double ampersand statement, this is the and statement, and we can use it for that purpose. And for the binary operators, we can actually perform some binary operations on the variables. So like the and operation, the or operations, and the XOR operation. This is a very basic. So and operation is like one is one, all other things. So all the bits should be similar, then only the all the bits should be set so that we get one. Else it is zero, one is zero, so on and so forth. Like or is like all, any of the bits should be, either of the bits should be one, so we get the output as one, right? Now, in some more functions, if we talk about, so input function is really important to understand. In C, we have scanf function to get something as input from the uh, from the uh, from the user. So we actually, as programmers, we are writing a program, and the program will actually try to get the input from the user, right? So scanf function is actually it is used to ask the user to give some input, right? So that is very important for a program, right? Input is very important. Then output function, again we do some operations and we output the result. So output function is very important. What output should we show to the program, to the user actually? So printf function we use in C so as to give something as output. So after performing some operations on the input data, we will be giving some output using the printf function. And all the lines in C language, all the lines of code in C language are actually terminated by a semicolon in C, right? So that is the basic syntax. This is the very basic we should know about C language, right? And in the next slide we will be trying to start with coding, right, directly into coding. So starting to write our code. So first we will try to get familiar with the IDE first. So I'll be using VS Code as an ID, right? It is a code editor. An ID is like where we write codes and where we run it, right? So there are three components right now in the ID. You can see it is the program file name is there, program1.c. That is the program file name. The bigger area in the middle, that is the coding area where we actually write code, where we code our problem, right, and we actually code our solution actually, right. And there is a terminal where where it is used for interaction with the user. As I said, we need to get something as input from the user and we show something as output to the user, right. So for interaction with the user we will be using this terminal, right. So terminal is actually used to get the input from the user and throw some output to the user, right. Okay. So actually you can always refer to this link to install VS Code and to set up the VS Code, right. So this is the familiarity with the IDE. I can show you the IDE. This is the IDE. It looks like this. Okay, so this is the file name we have, right. This is the file name we have. This is the coding area where I have written some code, and this is the terminal, and this is the terminal, right. This is the terminal. It is used for input and output. Okay, so writing our first program, we will be trying to write a, a hello world program, right. That is the very basic program we write in C language. It is the, in any language if we start programming, it's like a very basic practice. We start with writing a program for hello world, right, to print hello world, right. So we will be trying to write it. So there are two components. We have the code and we have the output, right. So in the coding area we are trying to write the code. So there are some lines of code. As we can see, there is line 1, hashtag include stdio.h. Then int main function, this is a function, int main is a function. Printf is used to print the hello world to the terminal, and return 0 actually it is used for it actually shows the whole program, the whole main function is run, right. So if we try to run this program, it is run and we get hello world as the output. So this is our first program. This is how we actually print something to the terminal. Actually we are trying to output something to the user, right. So this is our first program. So what are the components in this program? We will be trying to figure out what are the components actually used in this program, right? So the first part is including the header file. Okay, we will be trying to actually break down the components into break down the whole code into some particular components, right? So actually the first line of code is adding the header file. What is an header file? It contains the different type of functions, right. It is a library for different kind of functions, right. It will be containing the standard input output functions like printf, scanf, so input output. So they again there are more functions as well. So these are the basic. So this header file is containing the basic functions. Okay, what are functions? They are used to do some particular operation, right? They are used to actually do some particular task, right? A predefined logical task it is used, right? So we are first adding the header file. This hashtag include stdio.h. So if we try to, if we actually don't write this thing over here, and if we try to actually run the program, so there will be a lot of problems, because there will be some errors, because printf is not defined, right? Implicit declaration of function printf. So this printf is actually coming from this particular header file, right? Without this header file we cannot actually use printf or scanf in C programming, right? So this is where we are actually including printf, scanf. This including header file into our program. It gives us the access to use printf and other functions, right? We'll be talking about it later. So adding the header file, this is the very first part. Okay. In the second part, we are actually writing some code in the main function. Now, what is a main function? So in C, any code execution starts with the main function only. So int main is actually, it is a function where the code execution is started, right? So there can be other functions as well. Uh, but int main is the main function, where it is the function where the actual code execution starts, right? There should be a starting point, right? Where the code execution is getting started, right? Including stdio.h file is just like importing all the functions, all the head, like all the functions into our program, like getting all the access from the header file, right? But there should be a starting point where the execution of our program starts. So int main is that function where the execution exactly starts, right? So main function is used to execute the code, right? It is the starting point of execution. So this is the int main function. So these are some statements written inside the int main function, right? These are some int main statements within the int main function. And if you just if you just don't, if you just don't uncomment it, if you try to run it, then nothing is actually printed. So always if we try to execute something, so the execution of the program always starts with the int main function. Okay, in C language it starts with int main function. Okay. Okay, so the next part we have is to learn about printf. So what is a printf function? So printf is a function to print desired statement in the terminal, right? So terminal, as we have already discussed, terminal is used to interact, like the machine can interact with the user using the terminal, right? So machine is actually printing something. It is giving some output to the user using the terminal, right? So whenever we execute this program, if you see, it is a hello world, right? We are just executing the program, and we are getting the hello world. So where is this hello world we are getting from? We are getting it from the machine, right? So we are users and we are getting it from the machine, right, on the terminal. So printf is a function which is used to print hello world on the terminal, right? It is used to actually give some output to the user, right? Now, the last component is return zero. It actually just uh, it is just a return. It is just a return number, because we are using int main function. So there should be an integer returned to the main function. Okay, so it actually indicates that the code is completely run. Right, it is used for debugging. We don't need to deep dive into it very much, right? Okay, so basics about function. So what are functions, right? So functions is a logical group of statement that together perform a task, right? Some logical group of statements, right? So if I write in a function, like if I just declare some variables and do nothing, then it's not a function. It doesn't have a function, right? function should have something to be done, right? It is doing something. So functions actually do something. uh, some task, some logical task is done by the function, right? So as we have already learned this, like this int main is a function, right? It is actually doing what? It is actually performing these statements, right? It is actually executing these statements. So this is the function of int main function. Again, we have another function over here, which is the printf function, right? So it is doing what? It is just printing some output to the terminal, right? So these are functions. Okay. So a C program has at least one function, which is main. Of course, there can be other functions as well, which can be user defined. Like we can have some other some functions like addition, some function like subtraction. So that function will be maybe trying to do some adding to integer values, or subtracting to integer some float values as well. So there can be user defined functions as well in the C program, but in general we at least have one function, right? The int main function is always there, where the execution of code starts, right? Okay. So in a function, if we try to figure out what are the what is like the what are the parts of a function, so there is the return type. So if we try to see here, so integer main, so integer is the return type it is expecting from the program, right? So within the function, it is trying to it is expecting an integral value to be returned at the last of this function, right? So why do we do that? In case of return zero, it actually helps us to debug the program in a very smooth way, right? It actually demonstrates that the whole int main, the function, the whole int main function, all the statements have been actually executed, right? Line by line, all the statements are executed, right? So this is the return type, and this is the name of the function, right? Where we see over here, so integer is, so we have an integer add function over here. So in integer add, we have some a return type int add. So int is the return type of the function which has the name add, right? So as the name suggests, it is like something to add some variables, right? Now within the function we have int a and int b. So what does it say is they are the parameters which are accepted by the function. Okay. So a and b are variables which are coming from some other function to the add function, right? So it's like chaining of functions, right? So one function can call other function, right? You can call your friend to do some task, right? So if you have to do some particular task, right? If you are doing a project, or you are doing a something, you are doing some project, suppose, okay, you are stuck with some small problem, right? So what you do, you just call your friend and you just say that please do this task, okay, for me, right? So it is like that only. So int main function can call other functions, and other function can again call other functions. Okay. So there is a chain type of uh, uh, a chain type of thing. Okay. So one function can call other function. So int main function can call some add function can call some smaller add function, so on and so forth, right? So we have integer a and integer b as parameters. So parameters is used in the function to actually do some operations, right? So in the add function, as the name suggests, we should have some variables, right? There should be some variables that are to be added, right? As the name suggests to us, because we always try to keep some logical names, right? We always try to keep some logical function names, which actually helps us in code readability. They actually use in code readability. It makes it more readable, more understandable, right? So the add function actually accept two integers, integer a and integer b here in this particular add function. And there is some some variable which is defined a plus b. So some variable is actually containing the addition of a and b, so it contains the summation of a and b, and it is actually returning it to the actually it is returned by the add function to the parent function which has been called, which has called this and function, right? So suppose if we have written some add function in the actually in the after, like the int main function is calling an add function, suppose. So this sum is returned to the int main function. Okay, so that is the basics of function. So if you want to learn more about functions, then you can always use this link below, so W3 schools link. Okay, now for programming inside the int main function, so we just have three basic steps. We have only three basic steps. We just have some input, we do some operations to perform that task, to actually approach the problem statement. We actually try to figure out the solution, right? And we output the actually modified data, or the answer data, right? We actually output the answer to the terminal, right? So there are only three basic things which we do in inside the int main function. So in any function we actually do only these three things. Okay, we take something as input. It can be like, it can be scanning, or it can be already present as parameters. Okay, in user defined function it can be present as parameters. But and then we do some operations, like in the previous one we are doing here int sum is equal to a and b, a plus b, right? So a plus b is the operation. It is adding a variable, a's value and b's value, and it is storing it into the sum variable, right? The name, the variable sum is storing the addition of a plus b, right? Then we actually output uh, the our answer, right? The desired result is outputted to the terminal. Okay, so there are only three basic steps, right? Now we will be learning about if else conditioning. Now what is if else conditioning? As we already know, in English we actually learn, if we do this then we will be getting this, else you are going to get this, right? So it's like uh, a condition, right? So if contains some condition, if it is true then it will do something, else it will do something, right? So uh, it's like, if you want to master coding, right? So we if you want to master coding you have to practice it, right? Else you won't be able to learn it. It is very difficult to learn coding without practicing it, right? So the basic syntax is as it is given. If is there, if is a keyword, right? It is used to actually uh, ac- actually for actually checking the condition, right? So if a condition is true, then some particular thing is to be done, some particular block of statement or some statements are actually executed, else some other number of statements are executed, nothing else, right? So very simple it is. Okay, you can always read more at W3 schools, the link is provided below, right? So if else program one, we can actually uh, we are going to write one program on if else. So the problem statement says like, write a program to declare an integer variable with a value 5 and check whether it is in the range 1 to 5 or not. So 1 to 5 is the it's like the closed interval. Okay, so it doesn't contain 1 or 5, right? It contains all the number above 1 and below 5, right? It is the closed range, right? Okay, so what we do here in the program itself, if we just go to the code here, so if else one, so we first try to include the header file, which is the basic template of any code, right? So including the header file and writing the code inside the main function, returning zero. So that is the basic thing, right? if we just remove this, so this is the basic, this is the basic template for writing any C program, right? So we have to include the header file stdio.h. There are more header files if you want to actually access more functions, some other functions, then we have to include more header files like math.h is one such header file which contains some power function or something. Okay, so if you use, we can actually have other functions as well from other header files, but for very basic implementations we have stdio.h file, which actually gives us the access of some very basic functions. Okay, so this is the basic template of the code, and this is the actual code. So here in the very first line, in the line number 4, we are actually trying to, we integer a actually tells us that a variable a of integer data type is declared, right? So a variable which has a name a, right, it is of integer data type. Okay, if I just write a over here, a equal to 5, then that doesn't make sense because a is not a type, right? So a is undeclared, right? Because as a, just in case, for an example, if we try to enter in a university campus, then we should be defined, our role should be defined, right? So we can enter a university as a student, we can enter, right? As parents we can enter, as an admin, or maybe as staff we can enter, right? So as teachers we can enter, right? So these are the different data types for the university, right? That are the different roles for the university that are allowed inside the university campus, right? So in C programming, such roles are the data types, right? So integer, int, char, float. So these are those roles that should be defined, right? To every variable that should be defined. There are more such data types. There are bool, double, others as well. Okay, so for basics, we here we are just declaring an integer a, okay, which is of integer data type, and we are assigning a value 5 to it. Okay, very simple. 5 is an integer number, okay, and we are storing it into a. So a declaration and storing 5 into a, right? Okay, then we have a block of if else statement. Okay, so if is a keyword, as I said, and then in else we have like uh, we have two conditions. Actually we have two conditions. So here we actually check a is greater than 1 or not. Okay, so we are actually checking whether a is greater than 1 or not, and in the other condition we are checking whether a is less than 5 or not. Okay, so if these two conditions actually satisfy, then we are going to write print to the terminal that the a is greater than 1 and it is less than 5, right? Else a is less than equal to 4, or it is greater than equal to 5. Actually it should be 1, it should be 1. Okay, so if it is not between 1 to 5 closed interval, then it is either less than equal to 1, to like the to the most negative number, or it is always greater than equal to 5. Okay, so obviously we are assigning a value of integer a to we are actually assigning 5 to a, right? So it is not actually greater than 1 and it is not actually less than 5. So if we try to run this program, if we try to run this program, so we get a is less than 1, less than equal to 1, or a is greater than equal to 5, because we have assigned the value 5 to it. So yes, it is greater than equal to 5, it is not less than 5. Okay, so this is the way if else statements actually work. So here we are actually defining the variable, we are assigning the value to 5 to the a variable, right? Then we are checking this condition, okay, whether a is greater than 1 and a is less than 5 or not. So this is not true, so both the condition doesn't hold true, right? So we directly come to the else part, right? We don't execute this part, we directly come to the else part, and then we print that a is less than equal to 1, or a is greater than equal to 5, and then we return a 0, which is the normal template for any program, right? So this is how we are actually uh, doing this if else statements. We are actually implementing if else statements, right? Now, so this is the program flow. Yes, declaration and assignment. This is the first part. This is the first actually first operation. Then checking the condition. So a is greater than 1, a is less than 5. So we are checking the condition whether both the condition holds true or not. So it is false. And then we directly come to the else part. Okay, we don't execute the statements inside the if part. We directly come to the else part, and going into the else part, we simply print the function, right? We just execute the statements inside the else part, right? So this is our if else program one. Okay. Now for loop is there, right? After if else, so a basic, for a basic understanding of a program, right? So we need to know if else statements about variables, about operators, about functions, and for loop is one of them, right? So it is one of the very basic part of this thing, right? So for loop, where do we actually use for loop? So it helps in executing a piece of code again and again, right? A for loop actually helps in executing a piece of code again and again. We, if we want to print hello world 100 times to the console, right, 100 times to the terminal, are we going to write print f statements 100 times? Are we going to copy paste it? No, we are not going to do it. Okay, we will be actually running a loop which will actually move 100 iterations. 100 iterations means 100 times the loop will perform. Okay, and we will be writing a single printf statement inside it, right? So there is where we actually increase the code readability, right? We are not actually copy pasting printf functions 100 times. We are not going to do that. Okay, so we are using loops, right? So what is a loop, as we know, so it just go on and on and on, right? So it has a starting point, and it just goes, that starting point, whenever we start from that point, it just go on and on and on. Okay, as programmers, we just don't actually, we won't allow it to go on and on like for infinite time. We won't be doing that. Okay, we will be having some condition where it stops. So for loop syntax is very important in for loop. So for is the keyword. Yes, for is the keyword. For is the keyword we use for loops, right? Okay, then there is condition, right? Here we see statement one. So statement one is the initialization, not condition. I'm so sorry for that. Statement one is the initialization of the variable we are using for looping through, right? So here we are using, suppose we can use I, or any variable we can actually assign some value. We will in the statement 2 we will be actually checking for loop condition, right? We will be checking for the loop condition. And in the statement 3 we actually perform some increment or decrement operation. So how do we actually do it? This is the for loop program 1. If we try to actually figure out how we actually write for loop programs. So we are trying to write a program. Let us suppose if we try to write a program, here we are going to scan something from the terminal as well. Okay, so writing a program to scan, right, to scan an integer n. So n is just a name. You can keep Rajat, or you can keep some other names like Raj or something. Okay, you can keep any name. Okay, and you have to print the first n natural numbers. Okay, first n natural numbers. So natural numbers already, like, they start from 1 and they go up to n. Okay, so natural number goes from, it is a series of numbers, they start from 1 and they go up to n. Okay, so they like 1 2 3 and up to n. Okay, so here we are going to write the code. So in this code you can see, first we have included the header file. It is always a constant. the basic template we have used. Okay, the header file is included, it will be there always. In main function, it is always there. Return 0, it is always there. Okay, now at the line number 5, okay, so at the line number 5 we have two variables which are defined as integers, right? So as integer, I is one variable which is an integer data type. Okay, so it will hold some integral value, it will be holding some integral value. And n is another variable which is holding some integral value, right? Okay, so what we can actually do is, after actually declaring the I and n, we can scan the values of n, right? We are actually asking the user to input some value of n, right? We are trying to actually ask the user to actually give something as input, right? And after that, we are actually running a for loop. Okay, so first we declare the variables, second we scan the value of n, and third we actually run a loop. Okay, from 1, so I equal to 1, this is the initialization. So I is starting from 1, so its value is 1. Okay, at the very initial state it is 1. And the condition for looping through is, it is necessary for looping is I should be less than or equal to n. So whatever value of n we assign, okay, it should be less than or equal to n. Okay, always. Okay, and I plus plus is the increment or decrement operation. Okay, so basically it will actually run for I equal to 1. For I equal to 1, it will actually execute this statement. For I equal to 2, it will execute this statement. For I equal to 3, it will execute this statement. It will actually go on and on. It will be executing all the this printf statement n times, right? 1, 2, 3, and up, it will go up to n, right? N minus 1 and up to n it will go. Okay, so this for loop will be actually iterating n number of times, right? From 1 to n, it is actually iterating with a value of I equal to I is actually changing, right? I is actually at the very step I is actually 1, right? I is actually 1, and it is printing the value of I. So the value of I is actually 1, it is printed. Okay, printf %d is just a format specifier. Okay, so it actually it is used to print integers to the terminal, right? When this statement is over, so again we go to the for loop and we check the we actually increment the value, right? We increment the value I plus plus, so this I becomes 2 now. Okay, and again we are going to check for this condition whether I is less than or equal to n or not. Okay, so whatever value of n we give, so it will depend on that. If we give suppose 5, then 5 is actually the current value of I is 2, and it is getting checked whether it is less than or equal to 5 or not. So yes it is. So yes it is actually less than or equal to 5 if we take n as 5. Okay, so it will again print 2, again it will increment, again it will check 3 is less than equal to 5 or not, again it will print 3, again it will increment, again it will check 4 is less than 5 or not, again actually it will be printing 4, again it will increment, again it will check whether it is actually 5 is less than or equal to 5 or not. So it will be printing 5, again it will be incrementing, it will the value of I will become 6, and it will be checking whether 6 is less than or equal to 5 or not. In that particular case it will break. Okay, so we come out of the for loop and simply we return 0. If we try to actually run the code, if we try to run the code, then it is actually it is the code is actually waiting for us to give some input, right? So we have a scanf statement over here. So as you can see, the code is not actually, it is waiting. Okay, it has not been completed, the execution is not completed, rather it is waiting. Okay, so if we just give 5 as the input, so we get all the numbers from 1 to 5, right? So again if we run it. Okay, if we give it like 800, if we try to give 800, then all the numbers from 1 to 800 is printed. Okay, so there is how we are using the power of computers, right? If we ask a human being to actually write all the numbers from 1 to 800, it will take some time, right? But for a computer it just took some milliseconds, right? So there is where the computational power of computer is needed. Okay, so there is another for loop program. Okay, so here we actually, what is the problem statement? The problem statement is like we have to scan an integer n, right? So is the for loop actually understood to any, like everyone? Can you understand the for loop from the program one? Okay, so I hope the for loop is understood to everybody. Okay, so we are going to write another program on for loop. Okay, so writing the problem statement says like we need to write a program to scan an integer n, and we actually try to print its factorial, right? So what happens is, in this again we are doing the same procedure. Okay, we are writing the template. Okay, so include stdio.h, it is always there, int main is there, return 0 is there, it is always there. Okay, so what are the new things we are doing? So if we just go here, so what are the new things we are doing over here is we are declaring int n. So this is a declaration. This says that n is a variable of integer data type, right? Of integer data type, right? So this actually says this. Okay, again in this statement, int answer equal to 1. So answer is a variable uh, of integer data type. Okay, of integer data type, and it is assigned value, and it is assigned 1 as value, right? So we are assigning 1 as value to the answer. Again I is, again it is the an integer value, right? It is an integer variable. Okay, so we are going to assign some value to I as well. Okay, so again we are using the scanf function. What it does, again we just take the input from the user using the scanf function, and it will store it into the n. Okay, it will store it into the n. Okay, percent d is nothing but an it's like a format specifier. Okay, it is taking an integral value. Okay, so it actually specifies that we are taking an integral value as input, right? And it stores it inside the n. Okay, it stores it inside the n. Okay, so what next we do is, if n is less than equal to 0, then enter a valid number. Okay, if we talk about factorial of any number, so factorials basically it means from 1 to n we are going to multiply all the numbers, and we are going to have the value of n factorial, right? That is the basic idea that a factorial is. Suppose if we talk about 3 factorial, so it is 1 into 2 into 3, right? So it is 6, right? So the value of the n should not be negative, right? Okay, it cannot be -1, it cannot be 2, it cannot be -2, it cannot be -100, right? It should be greater than or equal to 0, right? Always it should be like that. Okay, so in that case, if the value of n is less than 0, then we can always print that actually the number we have entered is not valid, right? So we will ask the user to actually give input a very uh, to give input, a valid number is given, right, uh, as input to the program, right? Else it is actually just checking for validity whether the n is valid or not, for actually computing factorial, right? So for factorial we know that the number should be between 0 to any positive number, right? Any positive number. Okay. So what next we do in the else part, actually we actually try to uh, compute the factorial of n, right? So in that case what we are doing, the for loop is again used. So for loop, again, for is a keyword, integer I equal to 1, we are initializing I as 1, okay, and I is less than equal to n. Okay, so again, if we take, suppose n value as, suppose we take it as 5 again. Okay, so it will always check. So at every loop iteration, it will check whether the value of I is less than or equal to 5 or not. Then only it will execute this statement, right? Answer equal to answer into I, else it won't. Okay, once this condition is not true, it will just come out of the loop. It will actually, the loop will break. Okay, and we will be printing something. We will be going to the next lines of code, right? The program flow will go there. Okay, so I equal to 1, again I less than n, and I plus plus. So firstly the value of answer is 1 and I is also 1, right? We are doing answer is equal to answer into I because we have initialized our answer as 1. Okay, so at the very first iteration the answer is 1 and I is 1, because 1 into 1 is again 1. Okay, in the next iteration what happens, this I plus plus, the I is incremented. Okay, so I, the value of I becomes 2, right? When the value of I becomes 2, it will check whether it is less than or equal to n or not. Let us assume that we have taken n is equal to 5, right? If we have taken n is equal to 5, let us assume that we have taken n equal to 5. Then for I equal to 2, it will check whether 2 is less than equal to 5 or not. Okay, so it is actually true, it is holding. So we will be performing this operation again, right? The answer variable remains the same, there is only one answer variable. So what happens is answer into I. Okay, we are assigning the value of answer as answer into I, okay, as the multiplication of answer and I of this iteration, of the current iteration. Okay, so the answer new is what? So the answer new will become, this value is 1 and this value is 2, right? So the answer new will become answer is equal to 2. Again this statement is, this is being executed. Again we go to I plus plus, I value becomes 3. It will check whether 3 is less than equal to 5 or not. Yes, it is true. So again the answer is going to be assigned a new value. So answer is 2, I is 3, so answer becomes what? Answer becomes 6. Simply the multiplication of I and answer. Okay, again the increment operation happens, it becomes 4. We check whether 4 is less than equal to 5 or not. It is true, so it will hold. We actually execute this. So answer into I, it is actually stored in answer, it is actually overwritten in the answer variable, right? So 4 and 6, the multiplication would be 24. So answer is now containing 24. Again I equal to 5, checking 5 is less than equal to 5 or not. We will be executing this statement. 24 into 5 will become 120. So the answer is now 120. Again it will become 6 and it will check whether 6 is less than equal to 5 or not. So it is not holding the condition, and it will just simply break out of the loop where I is equal to 6. So I equal to 6 and it is just, it has come out of the loop. And now we will be actually performing the other statements, okay, as the program flow goes on, right? So we simply print n factorial is answer, right? Percent %d is used for printing answer, right? So if we try to actually run this program, if we try to run this program, So it is actually waiting for an input from the user. It is waiting for an input from the user because we have written a scanf function. Okay, so the program is waiting for an input function, an input value, right? So if we give 5 to it, we will be getting the 5 factorial number, right? So n factorial is 120. As we have already computed, it is 120. Okay, for 5 we have actually dry run the code, and we have seen the yes, the answer is 120, and the code exactly works like that. Okay, again if we try to run it again, if we just try to run this code again, if we just try to run this code and with some other value of n, we can have it as 8. So 8 factorial is 40320. So here is where the computational power of computers come in, right? So actually multiplying 8 into 7 from all the numbers from 1 to 8, it is a little time consuming for a human being, right? For computers, if we write the logic, if we know the logic, we know the logic, we are going to actually multiply 1 to 8, right? But as humans, if we try to actually do it on all by ourselves on pen and paper, it will just take some time, right? So here is where the computational power of computers come in. It just took like some milliseconds and it's just throwing the value of 8 factorial, right? Again, if we just run it, and if we give some negative number, as I said, it is invalid. So it will just implement the if part. Okay. So it says enter a valid number, right? So this is a combination of if else and for loops. Both are used over here, right? So this was it for loops. So we have 5 over here as input, and n factorial is 120, right? So this is all about for loop. Now we are actually done with the fundamentals of writing basic codes. Very basic codes we have written, like very beginner level codes where there. Okay, we just learn some basic things like functions. We actually learned something like we learned about if else conditionals, we learned about variables, we learned about operators, we learned about assignment operations, we learned about loops, for loops we learned about. Okay, so these are like the basic tools you need to write a simple program in C. And yes, some it is very much, it is like it is a very good start for any beginner having the knowledge of these things. You can actually start with coding. Actually you can solve some problems with using these things only. So you don't actually, you have to learn more topics, but these things can be used as a starter pack, right? Now, we will be actually trying to how to learn more about coding, right? So here in this session, or this conversation, we have tried to actually uh, learn the basics of coding. Okay, how to actually implement basic coding problems, basic things on like some basic thing, if else conditional, some for loops. Many of you might know these things from beforehand as well. Okay, but how do we just move forward to this, right? So there are many things, right? So how do we actually learn more? So firstly, we always try to learn a programming language. Okay, we always try to know a programming language. Okay, so if you want to say something to the machine, right, you cannot say it like in English or Hindi or Bengali, you cannot say, right? So you need a programming language to convey your ideas, your solution, your input, your output, whatever you are trying to interact with the computer. You need a language uh, idea, right? You need to have a grip on a language, right? So C is such a language. C++ is another language. Java, Python are languages. So these are very famous. C++, Java, Python, they are very famous. C can be a starter language. Any of the four languages can be a good starter language. Okay, so learn a programming language, okay, according to your need. If you're trying to go for competitive programming, then you can learn C++. You can actually learn C++. uh, then if you are trying for going for Android development, then you can go for Java. You can learn coding in Java, and you can again switch to Android development, Android application development. If you have interest in AI, ML, what type of things, then you can go with Python. You can always also build backends using Python as well. So choosing a particular programming language and acing it. Okay, we have to ace it. In that programming language, we should know all the syntax, like all the basic things for implementing our idea. Okay, if we have an idea, then there should be a particular way to actually solve that idea, right? We have to implement that idea, right? So using the knowledge of a particular program, of a particular language, then only we can actually perform those ideas on computer, right? We know how to write the logic. If we know how to write the logic, then we can actually get the task done by the computer, right? The computational power helps, right? And then we can always learn data structures and algorithms. So learning a programming language there contains like basic things, like we have already covered some of them, right? There are other things as well, like there are while loops. There are some more about functions, right? About user defined functions, you can always learn that things. Okay, there are structures, there are pointers and C. Okay, so those are very good concepts actually. Okay, and then we move ahead with another level. Okay, when we have a grip on a language, then we move ahead with data structures and algorithms. So in data structures and algorithms, we again we there is like that is the next level of programming, where actually we try to solve competitive level of programs. So what is competitive programs? It's just like real life programs, nothing related to competitions. It's just like real life problems we try to solve using competitive programming. Okay, so using data structures and algorithms, there are different data structures, very different type of data structures are there. Like there are arrays, there are linked lists, stacks is there, queues is there, heap is there, graph is there, tree is there, a lot of string is there. So a lot of data structures are there available. You can learn those, and there are different algorithms. uh, some of the very basic algorithms are like merge sort, sorting algorithms are there, searching algorithms are there, like binary search. Some more techniques are there, like recursion is there. Okay, so you can always learn those things. So learning a programming language is a prerequisite, and then we can actually move ahead with data structures and algorithms. So learning data structures and algorithms get actually helps us to it helps us more with the placements as well. Okay, so most of the product based companies actually they focus on data structures and algorithms in their interviews. They ask data structures and algorithms in their interviews very much. So if you ace it, you can actually, if you get a chance, you can be able to maybe crack it. Okay, so uh, what are the references you can have on YouTube? There are a lot of channels to learn, right? Abdul Bari is one such uh, channel. Okay, so you can learn the basics of programming from that channel. Again, Apni Kaksha is there. Okay, it has DSA as well. A lot of playlists are there in all of these all of these mentioned channels have some of the playlist. Okay, they have a lot of programming language playlists, some DSA playlists, some you know uh, basic computational, basic programming technique playlist. Okay, so you can always go and explore them, right? These are one of like these are the some of the best channels, okay, as per my knowledge. Apni Kaksha is there, okay, by Aman Dhattarwal. Then Code with Harry is there, where you can actually learn about a lot of programming languages are there. Okay, so C is there, C plus plus, Java, Python, a lot of things are there. Okay, then Take You Forward is by Striver. You can again learn data structures, some basic algorithms can be learned from, take you forward as well. A very good uh, uh, channel. Jenny lectures is there. It is very good. Aditya Verma, if you want to learn a little higher topics of data structures, algorithms, so there is recursion, there is DP. So Aditya Verma is a goat of of those topics. Okay, so recursion DP from Aditya Verma, and Neat Code is for, you can use it for problem solving, and as references you can take it. Okay, for learning a programming language or problem solving, you can always start with basic practice on HackerRank. HackerRank is a very good website for starting with basics. Okay, and we can always go for more practice on Geeks for Geeks and Lead Code. Okay, so these are two top platforms for coding. Okay, practicing coding. Okay, Geeks for Geeks also provide some articles where you can actually learn many things. These are all for free and you can always access them. Very good articles are being provided by Geeks for Geeks. Okay, competitive programming you can do on uh, Code Forces or Code Chef. So these are a little higher level problems. They contain a higher level problems. Like there are contests being hosted on this platform, and you can actually take part. You can see the real time rankings, and you can actually see where you stand in a lot of people. Right, a lot of people are giving these contests, and you can actually see where you stand, and you can always, there is always a scope to improve. Right, you can upsolve problems. Right, after the contest you can always upsolve some problems. Right. Okay, and also you can, as a developer, there should be a habit of googling our problems. So whenever there is a problem, just go and Google it. Okay, so Google will actually show you the path. Okay, there are a lot of sites like Java Point is there, some Stack Overflow is there. Okay, so a lot of websites which can help us. Okay, Geeks for Geeks is there. Okay, to solve the problem, to get this problem solved. Right, and practicing all those problems is very essential for understanding the usage of data structures, the usage of coding, not only just in competitive programming, rather we can apply all those things in development. Okay, in web development, in Android, iOS development, in ML, machine learning, AI, so on and so forth. Right, so this is a guide to learn more. You can take all those references. For basic practice, always consider HackerRank. Okay, once you are done with HackerRank, you can go for Geeks for Geeks and LeetCode. So conclusion, we have actually learned some basics about a programming language. Okay, so we have learned about variables, we have learned about operators, what are the basic syntax of C language. Why we have focused in C? Because C is in our curriculum, and it is actually a very basic language to start with. It is a good language to start with. Okay, so C is so using C we have actually written some very basic codes. We have used printf functions, we have used scanf functions, we have done some operations, we have some if else functions, if else we have used. Okay, conditionals we have used. Okay, then we have used for loops. Why do we use for loops? Because we don't need to, there is we don't need to write the code again and again. If it is like 100 times the loop runs, okay, you can write it. If the loop is going to run 10,000 times, you cannot simply copy paste it. It is very hectic, and it will make the code very difficult. Okay, so in that case we are using loops. Okay, so a very small part, again, it very powerful thing. Okay, loops, if else. Okay, using conditionals, we can always combine them to make something new. A new program can be formed, just as the program which we saw in the factorial. Right, if else was there, and for loops were there. Okay, so these were some of the basic programming techniques. So in a programming thing, so we always include the header file. Then there is a int main function where the execution, actually execution of the program starts. inside the main function we write the actual code which actually we are going to perform, right? Whatever idea we have, right? So we actually declare some variables, we take some input, we do some operation, we give some output. That is the basic idea. Okay, that is always common. Okay, and we also learned about how to we can actually learn more about data structures and algorithms and coding. Okay, so there was a guide. Okay, so we did some hands-on coding as well. Okay, so that's it, guys. If you have any questions, you can always put it on the live chat. You can put your comments on the live chat uh, regarding the session. If you have any doubts, you can always put it in the live chat. Also, do like the video if you learned something. Do like the video. Do subscribe to the channel GDSC Heritage IT, because more such very knowledgeable videos are going to come on this channel. Okay, for the link of the PPT is here given here. Okay, you can take a screenshot of this, you can access it from here. Okay, and we always please follow our social media handles. Okay, so any question and answer, if you want to have anything, if you have anything regarding the session, anything regarding competitive programming, if you want to ask, you can ask now. It's your time. So I'll wait for 5 more minutes. If you have any doubts, you can simply drop it in the chat box. So guys, drop in any questions if you have regarding the session or competitive programming. Do drop in the comment box. Do like the video and share it with your friends if you actually learn something uh, from this session come conversation. You know, I
Thanks, Rajat Bhaiya, for this amazing session. Um, everyone can you all can ask your questions. We're still here. Anything related to competitive programming or anything else? Maybe they can contact you on Telegram or any other socials that you want to share.
Yeah, you can always contact me on Telegram and on WhatsApp if you want to. You can actually do that. I cannot actually drop it in the comment.
You can share it with me if I can.
So my phone number is 8420439803. You can drop any message on Telegram for that, and on WhatsApp as well if you want to connect. On LinkedIn, you can always connect with me. Okay.
We can wrap up then, I guess. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Rajat Bhaiya, for this
Thank
amazing
you.
session.
Thank you for giving me a chance, for this session. Thank you guys for all your efforts and arranging this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.